Guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I'm very delighted to introduce our guest today, Rosie Zilinskas. And she's an entrepreneur. She's a certified high performance coach specializing in helping female executives, entrepreneurs improve their confidence, jumpstart their careers, get ahead in today's world. And for the audience out there, I think it'll really resonate for those from underserved, underrepresented groups. And I'm happy to welcome her to the show. So, Rosie, welcome.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me on. I'm so excited to talk about empowering women, considering that it's Women's History Month.
Yeah, I know. Like there was an International Women's Day, and I love this idea of just empowering and bringing up the underrepresented. And so, talk about your story, how you got started, and it's going to be a great conversation.
As to why I'm doing the work that I'm doing is because I found myself holding my career back unknowingly. I was 40 years old at my desk. I had just gone through a really horrible divorce. I had just recovered from that, and I was back on my game in the corporate world, but nothing was happening in promotions. And I noticed younger people than I was were getting promoted. And when I finally got the courage and the confidence to go talk to one of the executives, and I said, I'm interested in being considered for a management position, the answer was, really? And it took me a second to ask, like, well, yeah, what do you mean, really? And they said, well, you never said anything. And so that was one of my pivotal moments as to I realized that if that was happening to me, it was happening to other people. So I stepped into a management position a few months after that. But then the next time, Chris, when I went to become an executive vice president or to do something bigger, like a home office position, I went about it completely differently. And I basically started campaigning for me. And I was in the corporate world for over 30 years. I was very successful. Every 3 to 5 years, I would get promoted. But when I started trying to get into that executive rank, it was much more challenging. And I realized that I had to really manage my career intentionally, which is why I do the work that I do today, because so many women come to me and say, Rosie, help me gain confidence so that I can work on my career. But I tell them it's the other way around. You start taking action, working on your career, and the confidence builds in parallel. So that's a little bit about my story.
Interesting. And what you're describing sounds like the glass ceiling. And, especially if if you don't fit the bill of an older white male, then, you're going to have challenges. And I love your idea of this idea of intentional. And brings me to two questions. First is, a lot of people are like, okay, though, especially in today's, they're changing careers a lot. And so talk about this downtime where you don't always have to be in a career, but you kind of learn how to say no, and then when the right opportunity comes, and sometimes that comes with a lag or, a gap. So talk about that.
About what I call having your custom career roadmap. And the first phase, and there's 4 phases, but the first phase is really aspiring to figure out what it is that you want to do. And a lot of people are maybe not engaged in the work that they do, or like you said, they transfer jobs or feel that they're going to take a step back by transferring jobs. But really, it's just a little bit of a learning curve, and then you kind of get right back on the horse. But there's definitely some reflection that you have to take some time away and figuring out why it is that you're doing the work that you're doing. The way I look at it is you kind of have to have your life desires, and then you align that with your goals, and then you support it with routines and tasks. So it all kind of works in synergy. But as far as the downtime, it's okay to have a little bit of downtime. It's okay to have a little bit of a gap. Some people are like, well, I have to take a different title or lower pay. But if it's in the industry or in the company or in the team that you really want to work in, it's really worth it to sometimes take that step back so that you can re-energize and motivate yourself so that you can take 2 steps forward.
And for the audience out there that are listening, they're like in a gap, and then let's say they're developing their skills, and then the right position comes, and they're invited for interview, and then the interviewer's asking them explain this gap. How do people explain that in a positive light, where sometimes gaps are viewed as disadvantage or a bad thing?
Yeah, I would say I always recommend to my clients honesty is the best policy. Don't necessarily overshare, but if you're taking a gap to reflect on the real type of work that you want to do, I think it's perfectly okay for you to be honest. Some people are like, well, I had to leave the corporate world to take care of my family. We're human beings. People understand if you have to take time away from work to make sure that you're in the right position, if you're upskilling, if you're having to take care of your family, things like that. Honesty is the best policy. Be as transparent as you possibly can, again, without oversharing. But I think to me, when you treat the interviewer as a human being and share what you're comfortable sharing, that explanation is much easier than, trying to make something up or make it look good, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's really beneficial because learning to just say no, even, a lot of people they call it what is it called? It's like almost like a relationship, you like rebound relationship, but it's like a rebound thing. So I like to talk about these differences between women and men, and why so you say that it's you have to be very intentional, and same thing with the male counterpart. But how is it different from females versus males? Like what do they have to do differently? How do they get their foot in the door? How do they get seen? How do they get heard, to ultimately land these positions?
Well, a couple of obviously people are working on upskilling, and I think most people understand that they have to work on their skills and advance their knowledge and things like that to do the job. But the two different differences between men and women that I find is that men have automatically, by being men, have many more opportunities than women. So, like the standard going on sporting events, having conversations on the golf course, that whole thing, that automatically gives them opportunities. Women don't have as many of those opportunities.
Wow.
So there's two things that I always say: get advice from your peers that you've worked with and ask them, can you tell me, ask them two things. What do I do well and what can I do better? And the things that they're telling you to do better, those are the things that you need to work on and develop. So that's getting advice from peers, getting advice from senior leaders that you have worked with and say, what have you done? Share with me your experience. Someone gives you little nuggets of gold, and then you can apply that to your career. So that's the advice piece. But the biggest, more important piece is, I say, advertise. And that's kind of what happened to me. I was a high performer. I was doing well. And I'm sitting there waiting for an opportunity to land on my lap when I should have been pursuing that opportunity. So when I was finally ready, I was advertising. So I scheduled meetings with about 10 or 12 senior leaders in different departments, different teams. And I just asked them, listen, or I just let them know, listen, I am looking for opportunities. I don't know what it is. I know I want to do something bigger, but help me understand what more I can do, because I was already doing a lot of that. And that, I think, is ultimately what helped me. But really getting that advice from peers and leaders, as well as advertising the fact that you are ready for that next opportunity, and literally going out there and marketing yourself like you're the product, right? And that comes very easily to men, inherently based on the relationships and opportunities that they have just by, again, being men.
And I think it's really important because a lot of the audience out there are doctors, and as physicians, we are taught to just put our head down and just see patients, and kind of marketing, advertising, selling, all these things are considered taboo. Of course, the younger generation is changing that, and it's very important. What you said is to advertise get yourself out there. If you don't knock on doors, nobody's gonna open them for you. Yeah, really interesting. So kind of next question is, so one thing is talking about a lot about this idea of getting feedback, and there's a lot of this idea of blind spots. And then, so what do you mean when you talk about blind spots in careers?
Well, you really can't see yourself the way your leaders see you. So if your leader, your manager, whomever is not giving you ways to improve, then you need to go out and seek that information. But here's the thing. You need to prepare yourself emotionally to get that constructive criticism. So this is where we talk a little bit about the fixed mindset and the growth mindset, that if you go in there and you ask for feedback and they give you constructive criticism and you get all mad and upset, that you're operating more under the fixed mindset. But if you go in there and you're able to listen to the feedback, receive it, and apply it, then you're operating more under the growth mindset. But if you don't ask for that feedback, you're not able to see your blind spots the way other people see you. It's impossible for you to see yourself that way, because you could be acting one way and people could be interpreting that in a completely different way. So getting that feedback on, again, and you can do the same thing with your leader as you do with your peers. What do I do well and what can I do better? And start with that simple information. But interestingly enough, there's a lot of leaders out there that are so busy with their own careers that they don't give feedback to their team members. So it's really important that if you're not getting that feedback, you go out and seek it. But then again, listen, receive, and apply. Take action.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And kind of the next question that really came to my mind as you were talking is, you talk a lot about the corporate and the C, it sounds like the executive and the C-suite and middle management. A lot of the trend these days is a lot of the younger generation, they're like, screw this, I'm not going to work for a company. I'm going to start my own company. I want to create my own culture. I want to dictate. When you've hit that glass ceiling and you've done what you've done, you've knocked on doors, you've got feedback, and it's still like the culture is still, when is it time to move on or to change, or even, kind of get yourself in before, know what you're getting yourself in before, you do this, talk about that.
And I think what you were talking about, to put in different words a little bit earlier, sometimes when you get a job, you get buyer's remorse. You don't necessarily do your research. So one of the big things, and especially like you said, young people, and kudos to the young generation right now that are not putting up with being mistreated or being overworked or whatever. And just as a tangent, people are like, wow, these young people, they don't want to work hard. They don't want to put in like 60 hours and pay their dues. But I'm a Gen Xer. Those are my values. Those are not their values. So you can't impose your values on a whole generation and then judge them because they don't think the way you do. So that's one thing. But to answer your question, like, what do? They are now creating their own opportunities. They are becoming entrepreneurs. But one of the things that you can do to avoid that buyer's remorse is to look at the values, kind of like the mission and the vision of the company that you're looking at. And when you look at their values, and if your core values align with their values, you're going to be happier working there. And an easy example is, if being healthy is one of your core values, you're more than likely not going to pursue a job with a tobacco company, because you know that they know that their product causes cancer. So you're not going to be happy working for a tobacco company when health is your core value. So that's an easy thing to do. However, not many people take the time to figure out what their own core values is. You can also create a mission and vision statement for yourself. And once you create that for yourself, then you can look at companies that align with that mission and vision. And the mission is something that you do that's more immediate. So, like, my mission is to empower women in the corporate world to advance their careers with confidence. But my vision is to eradicate the gender gap in the world. So, the mission always supports the vision. So, that's an easy way to kind of tell if you're going to align with that company or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And kind of what you're to add on to what you were saying is, you've made mistakes beforehand signing up with a company. And then if you can see that before it actually happens, before you actually get yourself into that company, then you can eliminate a lot of these, glass ceilings and you can have a lot more productive career. And, the younger generation, they work smarter. And a lot of the values that, us Gen X and boomers, it doesn't apply to them because this is for another generation, so it doesn't work for them, so they have to start doing things and differently. I love this conversation. How can people contact you, follow you? I know you've got a podcast, No Woman Left Behind, and follow you on social media and to reach out to you.
Yeah, so the easiest thing for them to do is to go on my nowomanleftbehind.com website. And I'm also going to just let everybody know that for Women's History Month, I am launching a membership, and I'm going to share the link with you so that you can share it in the notes. But the membership is designed specifically to build community for women in the corporate space so that we can support each other. I don't know if you've ever heard of the quote that the former United States Secretary of State, she has now passed away. Her name was Madeleine Albright, but she always had this quote that says, "Women who don't support other women should go to hell," or something like that. So I'm very passionate about supporting women and encouraging them. And more than anything is taking action. When you take action, you build confidence. And that's really, really important.
I love that. And for all the audience out there, let's thank Rosie for coming on. Check out her podcast, No Women Left Behind. Give her a like and follow on socials and reach out to her with her website. And all these links will be in the show notes. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.